and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast of Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who never loses in the Pick'em Show 5 years in a row. Kyle, how's it going?
Doing good. Happy for me for breaking the streak and getting my first win. Happy for my girl, Anne Hathaway, for winning too. She's the only reason I would want the Eagles to win. So happy to see her successful. Happy to see me successful. And all around, we're just a successful duo in a lot of ways. She doesn't know it, but it is happening.
Yeah. I feel like Anne Hathaway being an Eagles fan kind of breaks my brain. That doesn't feel right.
It is a weird one. Like, I didn't know she was – I mean, I knew she was like an Arsenal fan, so I didn't know beyond that. So I guess good for her.
Okay, yeah, I found it out today. I don't know. Zachary Stewart says Josh Allen is tonight's biggest winner. Why? What am I missing here?
Yeah, I think he'd like to win the Super Bowl for a change. That'd probably be his start.
Yeah, I think all the Eagles players are probably a slightly bigger winner.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
Kyle, maybe, yes. What a night for the Philadelphia Eagles, who win 40-22 in a game that, weirdly, I think the story is still the Eagles defense, because, I mean, the Chiefs had, first off, a garbage time performance for the ages here. I mean, this is good stuff.
I mean, for my Chiefs minus half a point second half performance, it was pretty good. I would say that.
Yeah.
So they covered the spread there. But yeah, that it was Patrick Mahomes had a on first watch, so things will be adjusted. He had a 28.2 point PFF grade in the first half. That's not ideal. And I mean, it started with, I mean, all of it was amazing. And I guess like you start with up front, this was over 50% pressure rate in the first half, which was just amazing. This front four really did its thing. You can highlight several of these guys. Josh Sweat was the one that came to mind. I thought he was maybe the best player in this entire game. I thought he was really impressive. And, it just started there and worked its way back. We talked in our preview show about how much difference does a head coach and quarterback make? We say those are the two most important positions in the game. How much will that play a factor in this with the Chiefs having a better head coach and quarterback? Well, it turns out the Eagles have a lot going for them because this defense really dominated, and everything that looked like they had an advantage for the Eagles was definitely an advantage for the Eagles in this game.
It was one of those games where, like, however it went, it would be easy to say, like, oh, you idiot, why didn't you pick the other team, right? Because, like, if you pick against Mahomes, then it's, oh, you idiot, why do you pick against Mahomes? It's not too similar to last year when it seemed like the 49ers had advantages left and right, and then the Chiefs were just better in the key areas. But it was just a bit different in terms of how much of an advantage the Eagles had. I've got to pause because we have a $50 super chat from Overlap 618 saying, I told you, Jackson, when Overlap the mod says something, you listen. I told you the Eagles should win, and that was even after your tinfoil hat stats about bottom league receivers never winning the Super Bowl. You still pick the Chiefs. This is Overlap. That's true. You're right, Overlap. I should have listened.
Yeah, I mean, you broke your own statistic. That's what it was, and I mean, look, I mean, it really just goes from, like you said, this group was just amazing, and they seemed so very well coached for this game, and it seemed like they were just prepared for everything. Not only did they get the pressure, but they covered really well. And when you looked at the numbers of the way the Eagles covered the middle of the field, the way they pressured the quarterback, all that different stuff, all that just played a huge factor in this game, and that was different. And yeah, I mean, they did a fantastic job. They really have to. We're going to get to everything else with the Eagles and like what this means, all that kind of stuff. You just have to tip your cap to that group. Vic Fangio, this defense, this defensive line, this linebackers, and the secondary all stepping up in this game.
Yeah, we're gonna go through it all. We're gonna talk about everybody. Let's start with the Mahomes stuff. Because Patrick Mahomes, I think a lot can be said of like, okay, listen, he was in a tough situation. Absolutely. This offensive line was getting crushed in this game. Guys weren't getting open consistently. He also played horrible in this game too, especially in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of his worst performances of his career. I mean, just bar none. It was just it was just a terrible, terrible game. I think he made several mistakes. Obviously, like the second interception or whatever it was, he gets hit as he throws, can't get the full thing on it. Zach Bond makes a play. But there is just too many mistakes in this game, and it just felt like he was not prepared for what he was seeing. And a lot of it too is he was under pressure and nobody was getting open. But we're so used to, and maybe to a fault because he is Mahomes, we give him too much of the benefit of the doubt. We're just so used to him having the answers to everything. And he just didn't have the answers in this game. He didn't know how to adjust to this. The Chiefs didn't know how to adjust to this. And I don't even know if there was adjustments because that's how well this defense played in front against them.
Yeah, if Mahomes, I mean, we went into this game expecting Mahomes to be amazing and expecting this to be a close game, right? That was our expectations heading into it. So Mahomes playing bad obviously is going to shift things in a massive way. I'll keep going again. Overlap 618 with another super chat. Don't you gaslight overlap the mod. Your tinfoil hat analysis had Eagles dominating in every area except head coach and quarterback, and you favored the Eagles, but still picked the Chiefs. You fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. This is overlap. Yeah, I got it. I got it. Overlap. I'm with you.
The one year you lose, it's all it. You got to hear about it. That's the only one.
I guess so. But where was it? Oh, right. But as dominant as this game went, and I can already see some people saying, "Oh, they gave up 40. Why are you blaming the quarterback?" They didn't give up 40. In the first half, they gave up 24. 14 of those were directly due to turnovers. Mahomes threw a pick six and then a interception inside his own 20 that led to another touchdown. And you take those out, this is a different game. It was crazy, Kyle. Third quarter, we're at halftime. It's 24-0. And I'm like, okay, well, we've seen crazier comebacks than 24-0. We've seen the Chiefs come back from down 24-0 against Houston. Bit different competition, but still, when they didn't score, and then I saw the Eagles kind of starting this drive, I'm just like, oh, this game's over. Like, the Eagles are going to take 7 minutes off the clock here, and like this just isn't going to happen. And that's kind of the way it went. While it's fair to blame blame other things, and we'll get into that. The biggest thing is Mahomes just made way more mistakes than we're used to seeing from him.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so many things about that where it's like you don't want to give him more bullets than he needs, right? You don't want to give Mahomes chances. And, the opening drive for the Eagles starts pretty well, and then they have a 4th and 2 play that goes down the field. That was the tough pass interference call. It was interesting. Like I could see both sides of it, honestly. But like at the end of the day, it forces them to punt because they move back and punt. And Kansas City doesn't take advantage of that. Okay, it's fine. It's early in the game. Eagles go right back down and score. Kansas City punts again. Then finally, we get our first big Jalen Hurts play of the game, which was the interception. He turns it over on the 2-yard line, which people were saying arm punt, but also at the same time, like they had an opportunity to get points there and go up 2 scores.
You don't usually arm punt when you're in field goal range. That's not usually what you do.
Yeah, it just wasn't the same for me. So yeah, but then even that one, they don't take advantage of it all. They don't get a first down. They go 3 and out, which is a tough spot, but those are just typically spots where we see Kansas City constantly take advantage. So not only that, like you mentioned the 2 turnovers that set up multiple scores. That also set up a field goal that put them up 10-0 because they got the ball back at like the 45-yard line after that. It was the Philadelphia 43 set them up with the short field there. And everything about this game felt like we were expecting in the first half Kansas City to constantly take advantage of the situations that they usually do and capitalize on the very small mistakes the Eagles made in the first half. And they just didn't. They didn't take advantage of any of those situations in this game. I mean, you can even go to late in the first half too, where they have that 3rd and 3 at the Kansas City 49. Kansas City is using their timeouts very aggressively in the first half. It's 17-0. Jalen Hurts has A.J. Brown wide open for a touchdown on 3rd and 3. He has the play. A.J. Brown was so pissed coming off the field in this play because he just burnt the guy. He was ready to go for a touchdown. Jalen Hurts missed the throw for whatever reason on that play on the outside. So they have to punt back to Kansas City after using all these timeouts. Kansas City throws an interception. And it's just like this was such an uncharacteristic Kansas City offensive performance that, I mean, it made the job easy.
Yeah, Kyle, the Chiefs didn't have a drive of more than 5 plays until it was 40-6. Like that's ridiculous. They had one drive where they didn't go 3 and out in the first, or they had more than 3 plays in the first half, and they had 4. That was the first drive. They had a drive up, first down on the first play, did not get another first down until the second half.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dominant display. I mean, all 11, all of these starting defenders deserve a ton of credit because I mean, you don't play this good a defense with one guy being a weak link. Everybody stepped up and made some big plays in this game. Everybody covered. And, it's one of those things we talk about playing Kansas City all the time. You have to play almost 60 perfect minutes to win these games against Kansas City. And it felt like they had their starters out by like the 50-minute mark. 50 minutes of basically perfect play from Philadelphia was the difference in this game.
Yeah. Kyle, let's talk about the offensive line for the Chiefs and the defensive line for the Eagles, which was this was dominant. And going into this, I didn't think it was going to be quite like this. Like, Joe Thuney was coming off of a great performance against Buffalo. I thought he would do okay. I knew that the left guard situation would be a problem, but you have Creed Humphrey next to him. And then obviously Juwan Taylor isn't ideal, but he's been okay in pass protection. And this was just like none of that worked. Like nothing. Like Creed Humphrey and Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith were okay, but they were double teaming Jalen Carter every play. So like that, okay, they were able to hold him, but the other three guys were winning so consistently. When Mahomes tried to scramble out, they were able to get to him and not allow him to get outside the pocket. They were consistently winning while not giving up containment, which is so difficult to do.
Yeah. I mean, everything that we could have, I think everything a Kansas City fan feared was immediately prevalent in this game, right?
Yeah.
Like, just seeing this and, we said on Wednesday, who are the Juwan Taylor defenders? I mean, this was not a good performance for him. I mean, he wasn't the only one. It wasn't just his fault. But every one of these guys got dominated. And it's just an interesting thing to say for Kansas City because it does feel like a big moment for this team where they've retooled so much of this team after the Tyreek Hill trade, and they've spent a lot on this offensive line. They drafted Creed Humphrey pretty highly. They signed Trey Smith to big money. They signed Joe Thuney to big money. They drafted a left tackle pretty highly. They signed Juwan Taylor to big money. Like, this is a highly invested in offensive line that just got decimated in this game. And it's also a very expensive defensive line for the Eagles, but their investments have definitely paid off compared to the Chiefs in this one. And that was the prevalent part because like I said, I mean, you could tell me that Josh Sweat was the best player in this game on both sides of the ball, and I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, it felt like every play they needed one. He was just in the backfield. And like you said, he wasn't breaking containment at all. He was just absolutely amazing. Milton Williams also had a few big plays. I mean, all of them, like you said, and Jalen Carter's taken on two guys for a large portion of this game. They just completely crushed him up front.
Yeah, I think I would give Josh Sweat the MVP. I think he would be number one. I get if a quarterback can get the award, if you can justify it, they're gonna get the award. That's just how it works. But he had 2.5 sacks and also had to play that forced the pressure that resulted in another interception. I mean, that's incredible. And the comparison between this and the Tampa Bay Super Bowl. In the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, one of the biggest criticisms for the Chiefs after that game was they didn't help out their offensive line. They had basically 5 guys blocking every play. They were double teaming Sweat on a lot of these plays. They were putting extra attention to him. They were trying to scheme him out of the game. They just couldn't.
Yeah, no, honestly, he, there was a big play where he got a big sack that involved Isaiah Pacheco hitting him, and still he was able to make the play. So yeah, I mean, it was a lot of they were trying to find ways to give Mahomes a chance, and they just couldn't figure it out. And I mean, he was a menace in this game. He was a one-man wrecking crew. I wouldn't have been upset if he got a Super Bowl MVP. I understand why Jalen Hurts got it. I mean, he had 290 yards, 3 touchdowns. I'm not too mad about it, but yeah, I think he was the best player in this game.
Yeah, I think it almost hurt that Milton Williams had 2 sacks and a forced fumble as well. That made it almost you have to give it almost one guy doesn't stand out as much. Williams, who was, again, we talked about what were they going to do with Carter. They put him on the right guard. The Chiefs double teamed Carter. Probably should have at some point tried to help out the backup left guard because Milton Williams was then able to be a force there. And then again, they were able to get pressure on Juwan Taylor as well. So, I mean, what it comes down to for the Chiefs is Trey Smith is now a free agent. So I think in theory, you have this good interior. I don't know if you re-signed Trey Smith or not, but I think what you have to do is the Kingsley Sumatea draft pick, the left tackle, who, fun fact, is Penei Sewell's cousin, which that's a bummer, right? If you're your cousin is the best player in at his position, and you can't even you're so bad that they have to just put other play backups in front of you. I mean, they gotta just not be stupid here. Don't pay Juwan Taylor $20 million. Don't draft a project in the second round. Just get okay. You don't have to be great there. Just be okay. And they really failed to do that for Mahomes' entire career, except for his first couple of seasons.
I mean, that's the big thing, right? Like they wanted to spread that money out throughout the roster with the Tyreek Hill thing. And for 95% of it, like I can't discredit this team too much because they've won multiple Super Bowls,
Right.
Everything about this franchise has been a success the last 7 years. Like you can't discredit this too much despite one loss.
Right.
But if you are going to nitpick anything, like part of the reason why it worked the last few years is they have drafted and developed so well. That is something they have done incredibly well when they've, spent the money that they have and done the things that they did. The problem is they've also missed on some of these things. And it starts the offensive line where they've missed the most, because from the things that they've spent money on to the things that they drafted, it just hasn't worked at these tackle positions. And, I get it. You can say Mahomes is the best quarterback under pressure, maybe in the history of football. Like he honestly might be, but at the same time, it's not fair to ask any quarterback to do that. And he didn't play well in this game. It was a very bad game. It's going to be something that, is going to be talked about, but I don't know which quarterback is going into this situation having a lot of success.
Right. It would have been tough. I think you're right. We could criticize him all we want, but I mean, they just played the Buffalo Bills, who many people thought, I thought going in, like the winner of Bills Chiefs was winning the Super Bowl, and they were able to win that game, right? Like at the end of the day, it is what it is. But Kyle, let's talk about the Vic Fangio of it all, who what impressed me the most with the Eagles is we talked about how the Chiefs have been so good with these, kind of these simple plays. The gets an easy 6 yards with having kind of a pick play or a rub route. They weren't able to get any of that going. They tried and they failed consistently. They weren't able to run the ball either. And now you have a bunch of 3rd down and 9s where the Chiefs have struggled all year and the Eagles have been great all year. That's the other part of it, right? The pass rush wouldn't have got there if there weren't so many 3rd down and 9s, if these were 3rd down and 3s instead.
Yeah. No, he did a fantastic job. And honestly, the most impressive thing about this game was it felt like Philadelphia was just unbelievably well prepared, right? Like it just felt like one team was incredibly well prepared and the other one wasn't. It's like one team got the test sheet and the one didn't study until the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like Travis Kelce looked like he was on Burbage Street for a whole week before this game or something.
His body language was crazy. Like he was like depressed, like the entire time. I get it, but like you compare that to the Julian Edelman, this is going to be a hell of a story, 28-3 body language. it was crazy.
Yeah, he felt out of it basically from the beginning. It was weird, but yeah, it felt like they had the answers to everything from the beginning. And like you said, they communicated so well on those switches when they needed to. They had the answers to everything. They prepared for those rub routes because they knew it was coming if they were going to sit and go to man. They knew how to prepare for the zones, and it felt like every time Kelce was going over the middle, they had it layered perfectly. Like they had Zach Bond in front, they had the safety over the top, and they just did everything so flawlessly. It seems like at times that like it was an unprecedented performance. I felt like, this defense has been the best defense in the league for several months now at this point. Statistically, they're the best in the league at almost everything. And, I don't know if it was like a historically great defense that we're going to talk about 20 years from now, like we do like the 2000 Ravens, something like that. And that one was just a different animal as far as like the physicality went. But statistically, this defense meant a lot this season. This was the guiding force for the whole year, that they had this defense that was the best in the league at everything. Like we just don't see defenses like this anymore that are good in pass rush, good against the run, good in coverage, good at tackling, all this kind of stuff. It just felt like any answer they needed, they had.
Right. And even like when the Chiefs tried against their depth players, the depth players were good. It's the deep team on top of it. You're absolutely correct. Kyle, I think one thought about just this entire game is we talked about the Chiefs go in the preview. They do have issues offensively. They don't have a clean offensive line. They don't have a dominant receiving core. And we talked about how usually it's not been an issue because they're so good at these kind of scheming up dunk, dink and dunk plays. I think kind of a theme of this game was when you take away what you're best at, how can you still win? And when what you're best at gets taken away, can you still win? The Chiefs were not able to go somewhere else. When plays that they were the best at got taken away. They didn't have another answer. The Eagles did when Saquon Barkley got taken out of the game, and we'll talk about that later. They were able to pass down the field. The Chiefs had no other answer.
Yeah, they didn't have another answer. And, I do think it goes a long way to saying, too, like, the Chiefs played basically this entire season without their best offensive player, maybe besides Mahomes, obviously, with Rashee Rice. And that would have been something that obviously would have been a huge answer. And going forward, like, if you're going to say, are you concerned with Kansas City? Well, they get Rice back, and that's going to be a huge part of this offense. But obviously, they didn't have him all year. I'm not going to make that excuse for them or anything like that for this game specifically, because they knew they weren't going to have him. But it was just amazing to see, because we've just seen so many times like this Andy Reid team and Mahomes and all that just have the adjustments. Like we've seen this team struggle at times, right? They haven't had perfect games. They haven't had perfect halves, all that kind of stuff. But it always feels like that there is a solution to all of their problems. And in this game, there just wasn't a solution to anything. Like they had no, we were even like at 24-0 at halftime. Like, okay, maybe they make the adjustments. It's going to be one of those amazing comebacks. They did it against the Texans in 2019, like completely different game and all that kind of stuff, different teams. But like, maybe they just kind of go out and get a touchdown, and all of a sudden this is anybody's game all of a sudden. But no, they just immediately punt, and it felt like, okay, we're just spinning at the wheel here.
Yeah, it was surprising. I thought there was going to be some sort of pushback. They didn't have much of anything. So yeah, it was shocking. Anything else on the Chiefs offense before we get over to the Eagles offense? Obviously, we can talk more about it later. But want to just go to the Eagles offense, or do you have anything else?
No, we can keep moving. I think that was I think we covered everything there.
Yeah, well, let's start with kind of what I touched on already. Saquon Barkley, who still had 25 carries in this game, part of it was they were up and just trying to kill the clock, only 57 yards, 2.3 yards per carry. If you heard that going into this game, you'd think, okay, Chiefs by a million. This was a game where the Chiefs said, we're going to force you to throw the football, and they, quite frankly, just Jalen Hurts was able to pretty consistently make it work. He had a couple of missed throws. One was intercepted. But other than that, he was consistently making the throws down the field. And I think the downfield passing was, that's kind of what we talked about with the Eagles have many ways they can go. They're a deep team. And when you took away their best option, they were still able to be okay. And in some ways, you could argue this was the difference between, them winning the Super Bowl was still kind of having Saquon Barkley. He took so much attention away that they were able to still be able to rely on Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. And even Jahan Dotson had like a great route that was so good. I thought it was like a pick play or something. It wasn't. He just burned Jalen Watson, who had a rough day. That's really what it came down to. Yeah.
I think if you asked like Steve Spagnuolo about this game, he probably said like, we did everything we wanted to at a time. And they just, like you said, they had the answers to it still. And like you said, it just comes down to the depth and talent of this team. And, I think a lot of it comes down to also what we talked about in the preview show is that, this team has done a good job of taking away best options, but when they've played really good second options, they've struggled. They've struggled in those situations because the way this defense is and how aggressive they play, it's going to rely on a lot of one-on-one situations. And they didn't have a lot of answers for those one-on-one situations in this game. Devonta Smith obviously had the big touchdown. I thought he had a very good game overall, and Jalen Hurts, they dared Jalen Hurts to make throws in this game, and he made the throws. I think he missed basically 2 throws in this entire game. One, the interception, he was hit. I don't think there was really a throw there to begin with, but he was hit on the throw. So maybe he, is able to get that out of bounds or something like that. And then the second one, like I said, he had a touchdown pass to A.J. Brown that he missed too. But yeah, it's a weird game because like, I thought Jalen Hurts played well. And if you looked at these receiver stats, you're like, oh, it's a pretty, modest game for all these guys. Like A.J. Brown might've had the best 3-catch, 43-yard day ever. Like it felt like he was just winning that matchup pretty easily whenever they wanted to go to it. And he was going up against an all-pro and Trent McDuffie for basically all of this game. And it just felt like anytime they wanted to go to A.J. Brown, there was a catch there for him and he was going to win. And that matchup, that size matchup advantage really was noticeable in this game.
Well, you think about what's the difference between this team and last year's team that was able to beat the 49ers. Last year, the strength of the Chiefs was their secondary. And part of
Mm-hmm.
it was not only did they have all these guys, they had L'Jarius Sneed, who was better than all of them. He was their number one guy. He didn't, a stat that Chiefs fans kept bringing up when we left him off our All Pro thing was that he didn't give up a touchdown all year, right? He was a really good player for them, and he hasn't played well in Tennessee. So it's not like the Chiefs should have signed him, but they, losing him, I think really hurt. For one thing, now you have McDuffie trying to cover AJ Brown, and no one can cover AJ Brown one-on-one. That's just not a good situation. And then you've taken out your best corner, so now you also have these other guys, Jalen Watson, who played really well against kind of the not super difficult number 2 receivers he's had to go up against this year. Really struggled in this one. As I said, he got burned by Jahan Dotson. I mean, that's not what you want.
No, I would say that's not ideal. And yeah, it felt like anytime that the Eagles needed to go to the passing game, which they didn't have to a lot. I mean, it was 45 runs to 23 passes. I mean, and granted, there was garbage time, but it just felt like anytime Eagles needed to drop back, they had 8 to 10 yards on those plays. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 10 yards per pass. We talked about the Super Bowl MVP and, was it fair or not? Jalen Hurts did have 10 yards per pass in this game and ran the ball very effectively too. I mean, he was their best runner as well in this game. I mean, he was a significant part of this offense for a lot of positive reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just feel like for an award like a Super Bowl MVP, I'd like to not always give it to the quarterback. It's kind of my thought on it, but like I do agree. I mean, if it's most valuable player, it's usually going to be belong to the quarterback. And you're right. I mean, what Hurts was able to do, especially you brought up his legs, like that was huge because the one thing he kind of struggled with in the first half was against the blitz. And then he just like ran through the blitz and was able to get plays that way. And we talked about how good of a job the Eagles did with containment on those plays. The Chiefs did not do a good job on some of those plays, letting him be able to scramble. So, I mean, again, the Eagles were just a more disciplined team in a lot of ways.
I mean, it really, like, all of it put together, it just felt like the Eagles were so prepared. And then the second half of this game, like, it felt like the Chiefs were just broken at a certain point, right? Like the defense was just gassed. I mean, the Eagles had 36 minutes of time of possession. They had all of these yards. They had over 10 yards per passing play. They had plenty of running. Jalen Hurts was getting what he needed to in the run game as well. And it just felt like that was a difference. Like all of a sudden, it's like the Eagles just look broken down and tired. Their defense can't move. Chris Jones obviously was dealing with some neck injury basically right from the beginning of the game. That obviously doesn't help your team when your best player's out. And all of that put together, it was a very, very good offensive day for the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts gets his Super Bowl. He gets it done. He's played very well in both of his Super Bowl performances, and this was another very good game. And every bit of it deserving of his flowers for what he's been able to do this season and help this team run the table at the end.
Jacob McKay says everyone dismissed the Eagles and Hurts all year, and it's nice to see everyone have to suffer watching this. I don't know if that's true. Did everyone dismiss Hurts? Hurts definitely got criticism this year. That's for sure. But I don't know if I would say everyone dismissed him and the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's okay to criticize someone when it's justified. Like there are fair criticisms of Jalen Hurts, even as far as last week, or 2 weeks ago. Like he deserves some criticism if he's not going to play his best. But like I will say, the big credit you give him is he's played in 2 Super Bowls and maybe had his best 2 performances of his playoff career in both of those Super Bowls. I mean, that's an impressive thing to do.
Yeah, that helps for sure. I mean, here's a thought I had. Is there any does Hurts have a Hall of Fame case? Probably not now, but he's still young. I think he's 27, 28 years old. Can he, and I don't know, if he gets back to another Super Bowl or is that possible? He's played in 2 Super Bowls and he's won one of them. I feel like usually the math on it is you need either 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, or like 1 Super Bowl and 2 Super Bowl losses kind of thing. Feels like he would need to at least get to 1 more Super Bowl to get or win an MVP to get in, but it's a conversation.
It could be there one day. It's still a long way to go. He's still young. I mean, this team's going to be good. He's going to win a lot of games, and so that's obviously going to help. So we'll see. There was a lot of talk about Eli Manning this week, so I guess that makes it kind of prevalent. But I mean, to be able to do all this already at this age and sort of defy the expectations, I think it is a I think it is a impressive feat for him nonetheless. And, we'll see on the Hall of Fame case for him in the future, but he's off to a great start. Not many guys are off to a better start than him right now.
Yeah, and he also has finished second in MVP voting before, so like he
Mhm.
has. It's not like that's all he has is team success. But yeah, really good stuff from him. I don't know where else do we go with this Eagles offense. I mean, like I think again that's pretty much it. Like we covered it.
I mean, honestly, it feels like a lot of it. Like, I mean, I don't know. It was so dominant from the start, and like, yeah, they made a few mistakes in the first half. Like I said, you had that interception. Obviously, you had the late incomplete pass. You had a few moments like this, and that was my biggest concern about this game. Was like they were up 7-0, and it was like the Eagles are dominating this game, and they're up 7-0, and then they finally get that field goal, and it's like the Eagles are dominating this game and up 10-0, and it just felt like this feels like a classic Chiefs win, and all of a sudden it just wasn't because they just kept putting the foot to the floor, and they got it to 17, they got it to 24 at halftime, and then even then still you're like, well, we'll see. Patrick Mahomes on the other side, and it was like, no, we're not doing this. And we continue to forget that this Eagles team with the lead is probably the hardest football team to face right now because
Yeah.
they're just so good at bleeding the clock. I mean, they're just so good at just commanding the ball. I mean, 36 minutes of time of possession in a Super Bowl is absurd. Like they don't give the ball up. They just don't.
Right, and that's including a 1-play touchdown drive and a 2-play touchdown drive on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they did their job. I mean it is a fantastic feat for sure.
Yeah. Kyle, I want to do a quick refs talk. We won't spend forever on it. I have to say, for all the attention that was going into this, I was expecting a great performance by them. They were not good in this. Like I thought that they had some questionable calls here at the very least, with the couple of like the AJ Brown penalty right off the bat, which it's just kind of funny that like all this talk about the refs and just immediately they just make like what I thought was a very weak offensive pass interference call on a 4th down, big conversion by AJ Brown.
Yeah, it was a weird play because like obviously you think that hand fighting is never going to get called because they usually let the hand fighting go, especially for the offensive player, and they called it, and you watch the replay, and I get the justification because he like pushes them in the face, but there's also like 6 inches of height difference between these two players, and like I just don't know what AJ Brown's supposed to do there if he's being pushed by the other guy. Very difficult call. Very much felt soft in that moment. Obviously moved him back and forced the punt. The biggest one for me though was the first field goal that was the false start offside thing where they called the center infraction, where the last person to move on this entire sequence was the center. Like that was just the most insane thing I'd ever seen. Like of all the people to call that on, it was the center. It felt like such a cop-out call for no reason when the defender did clearly jump on that play. Like that was a Chiefs offside for sure, if anything, because the center does not move a muscle. And it was just it was insane.
Yeah, no, it was like shockingly like still. He's like, okay, let's see the replay, and he's just like like one of those like statues you see like painted silver. Yeah, no, that was insane. And like if you want to say no call, because I wasn't sure if the defender jumped off in the neutral zone or not. So it's like you could maybe argue no call, which would have resulted in a field goal. And then Elliott nearly missed the field goal after it too, which that would have just been like the perfect like 1-2 punch.
Sent everybody over the edge if you missed that. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the funny thing is, like, you could have just said false start, like he didn't break the neutral zone, and the guy jumped. Like,
yeah,
that would have been the easiest call. Instead, you pick the one guy who doesn't move, which is the funniest thing. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a very weird. That was a weird one, and yeah, they had some difficult penalties in this game for sure. So
yeah, there was a couple that hurt the Chiefs as well. There was kind of a weaker McDuffie hit Goddard in the neck area. I get it, but it's usually the neck area is just like thrown in there in the rules, but never actually enforced. So that one's gray area for me. And then also like Mahomes got like punched in the face on a play late that wasn't called too. That happened.
Yeah. It was a poor performance all around. DeAndre Hopkins, I guess, said something about it in the post-game press conference.
Oh, you can't do that. Can't do that when you lose 40-22.
Yeah, and honestly, it was like 40-6. So
Yeah. Mhm.
40-6 when it was relevant, 40-22. You can't blame the officials for that. But yeah, it was not the best officiated game for sure. But overall, I'm glad it just had no impact on the game. That's all that matters.
Yes, I think so as well. Where to go? We got to talk about Nick Sirianni. I mean, what a! I think not since Tom Coughlin have we seen a bigger in-season turnaround of people wanting. People were chanting "Fire Sirianni." Kyle, there was a play when the Eagles were 5-2 against the Jaguars earlier this year. The Eagles scored a touchdown to go up 12 points. They went for 2 to make it 14, and they were getting booed just because the crowd was so annoyed at Nick Sirianni consistently going for 2 and going for it on fourth downs. There was that much criticism going on. He obviously famously yelled at his fans on a play, and now he's a Super Bowl champion. Unbelievable.
I mean, is there an argument he's the best Eagles coach of all time at this point? Like, he's
And
made two Super Bowls as
yeah, yeah, it's not a bad point.
he's made two Super Bowls as yeah. I mean, he's made two Super Bowls as a head coach. He's obviously won one and was within a few points of winning the other one. You know, for all the criticism he got this season, I mean, you're right. I mean, he felt like a dead man walking at this point, and it honestly got to the point where, like, if they lost their first playoff game, he probably wasn't going to be the coach. And
Right.
uh, and yeah, so to be able to battle back and not only like overcome all that, but also win a Super Bowl, like it is an impressive feat. And yeah, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves at this point. He has won a lot of games. He's had success. I don't think he's a perfect coach at times. And I do wish sometimes he would make some different decisions, but he is very headstrong in his beliefs and what he wants to do with the team. And it worked in this game, and it's worked for large majority of their games for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like this whole fourth down decision making stuff, which is really, I think, what the key thing of the reason people dislike him is. It's like it works more than it doesn't, and when it doesn't, it gets more attention than when it works. But it's paid off, and and that's kind of been it. So yeah, got to give him a lot of credit. Where else do we want to go here? I mean, do we want to do the Mahomes legacy stuff?
We can. I do have one question for you.
Okay.
Do you think Harrison Butker would have been more useful in this game or in the kitchen? That's what I want to know.
Okay, all right. Let's do the Patrick Mahomes stuff, Kyle. Yeah. Mahomes, who does not play great here. Like the thing is, we're comparing him to the greatest quarterback to ever do it, who also had like a ridiculous career. Like he played until he was 45 and was like still great then. That being said, if had he won, would have been 4 Super Bowl wins, including 3 in a row, which as obviously, as we all know, has never happened, would be kind of on pace to getting to Brady. It really kind of puts in perspective how ridiculous it was what Brady did. Now finds himself 3-2, obviously turns 30 next year, still has a long career ahead of him, but it's a little bit further away now from I think the chasing 7, which is such a ridiculous thing to even talk about, but is still something to talk about.
It's something to talk about. Like, look, like it's insane to the GOAT conversations always bother me because, like I said, the whole premise of a greatest of all time argument is that it is perceived disrespectful to call someone the second greatest player of all time. Is
Right.
basically the premise of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult to say something like that. That being said, win or lose this game, Patrick Mahomes has had probably the most successful start to an NFL career ever. Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This result has no bearing on the fact that he has had the most successful start to an NFL career ever. This team has seen a bunch of success. Like, he has lost 4 playoff games, to my recollection, and they were 2 AFC Championship games and 2 Super Bowl games. Like,
And the AFC Championship games were both in overtime.
right. So it is hard to fathom like a worse situation than what they've been in and what he's been able to do. I do think the one thing we could talk about when it comes to Mahomes is like, I just don't think he played as well this year as he has. And like, I still think he's great. I still, I wouldn't hate if someone called him the best quarterback in the league, and I probably would agree with you at that point. And I would have him the best quarterback in the league right now. But like, objectively speaking, I don't think he played as well as Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson this season. And yes, he beat Josh Allen in the playoffs and all that, but like I don't want to say, how do I phrase this fairly without like being overly critical for someone for simply losing in a Super Bowl game. I just don't think he was as good as this year as we've seen in years past. And he felt beatable. And in this game too, like you said, this was the worst game of his career. So I don't want to take this one off game and make a big point off of it. But just in general, we have seen chinks in the armor, it feels like this season, more than ever before when it comes to Mahomes. And, we just kept like seeing the Chiefs figure things out just enough to get a win. And then they just didn't have a way to figure it out this time. And he just was beat over and over again in this game.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. What Mahomes is now 0-3 when he's playing a playoff game with Tom Brady in the building.
Yeah, I guess that's a stat.
Yeah, I don't know. Just something funny, but no, I mean,
just
go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna go off on a side tangent, so go ahead. That's fine.
Okay, no, I mean, you're right. I think it's fair. I also think that like this game was not that dissimilar from what we've seen Mahomes working with all season. Like, he hasn't had a good receiving core. He's had a very bad offensive line. Kareem Hunt, who I think has played well this year, is still a guy they signed off the street and are, using. He has a great coaching staff, and that helps. He has a very good defense, and that helps. But, like, at the same time, like, I still think that every single team in the league, whether they will say it publicly or not, would rather have Patrick Mahomes than their current quarterback.
Yeah. Would you trade him for Caleb Williams?
that's the question. Yes, who knows? But no. But I mean, at the same time, too, it's like, again, if we're doing the GOAT thing, while usually these arguments get really stupid, people are going to bring up he's gotten blown out twice in the Super Bowl and played, poorly, I would say, in a good number of Super Bowls now. Like, that's the thing that's going to get brought up. I know that, like, again, it's better to get blown out in a Super Bowl than to lose before then, but it's something that's going to happen on these conversations. Yeah, I guarantee you, whoever's on a show with Nick Wright is going to bring it up tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Wilde, Patriots fan on that show, is definitely going to bring it up. That Brady walked off the field in fourth quarters with leads. Mm-hmm. And in Super Bowls, and Patrick Mahomes has lost multiple by double digits. It's definitely going to happen. It's a dumb argument. They're all dumb arguments in the end. That's the problem with the GOAT debate too, is they're all the bad arguments. That's all the bad arguments that come to light. But yeah, it's an unfortunate game. It wasn't his best. He's still obviously an all-time great. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a lock for a Hall of Famer. He's going to be remembered as one of the best quarterbacks ever. And maybe he does get 7. Maybe he does hit 7 Super Bowls still, and then it becomes a real debate or whatever. But it's just, it's hard to win in this league. It's hard to win several times. And, it felt like the war of attrition finally got to Kansas City a little bit, which was just the most surprising thing. It's just like, it just felt like everything about this team just like bounced right off it, and it was just fine. And then this game, it just didn't. It just felt like they just hit a brick wall.
It almost like, does this make you feel a little bit worse about Buffalo in hindsight? Of like this is like this team that's supposed to be like their year. Like, I feel like this has to make you feel a little bit like, okay, we keep saying we're so close to beating Kansas City, but in 3 out of the 4 years we lost to them, they went on to not win the Super Bowl. They lost to, in all of them, they lost the following week. They played them twice in the conference championship. They got killed by Tampa Bay, and then this one they got killed by Philadelphia. Also, in the 13-second game, the Chiefs then lost to the Bengals the next week. It almost makes me feel a little bit like do you think about this and say, hey, maybe we're not as close as we think we are?
I mean, that's the argument we've said before when it comes to them in Baltimore and all those teams in the AFC and trying to catch this group, is like Kansas City has felt incredibly beatable the last 2 years. Last year they win the Super Bowl. This year they don't, obviously, but like they felt beatable. Like, there are issues with these teams. We talk about it week after week. There is issues with these teams, and they still ended up winning a lot of those games and beating all those teams. Like, if it's not going to happen with this iteration of the Chiefs, because guess what? The Chiefs are a very well-run organization from the top down, and it goes even beyond Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all that kind of stuff. From the top down, they're an incredibly well-run organization. They're going to figure out their mistakes. They're going to figure out their deficiencies and improve them. If you can't beat this version of the Chiefs, what version of the Chiefs can you beat? What if this team walks in with Myles Garrett next year? You're not going to beat this Chiefs team next year with Myles Garrett. You're not going to beat this team with if they bring back a Tyreek Hill or whatever like that. I mean, I don't even know how they make the money work, but like something like that, it's not going to be easy.
Well, I actually think, maybe last thought on the Chiefs before we'll go back, finish up with the Eagles. I think so the Chiefs are still going to be good next year. Obviously, losing Trey Smith could hurt if they do let him walk. The following year is they had that incredible draft where they had like 8 players who became starters. Those guys are all getting paid the following year. So it kind of feels like, obviously, the Chiefs are always going to be good with Mahomes and always going to be a contender. But you do wonder, could they take a step back? Probably not. But it's just something you have to wonder.
Well, it's going to become a point they have to hit another draft class. I mean, they're just going to have to nail their picks or trade them. It just becomes asset management. If you trade your picks and get good players, it doesn't matter if you use them or don't. You just have to get good players to replace them. So, I mean, are they able to do it? And that's what makes this situation so hard. It makes what the Patriots did so hard for 20 years. It's like constantly churning out good players and like winning on the margins is incredibly difficult. And to a certain point, no matter how successful you are, you have to find ways to win on the margins to make the difference.
Yeah. Kyle, I have a hot take. I think this is a hot take. Could we argue that Howie Roseman, one of the best, maybe the best GM in football? Is that crazy?
Is he the best GM in American sports right now?
In American, well, I would have to go through. Probably not the Mavericks guy.
Nico Harrison probably isn't number 1 right now with Anthony Davis. Out a few weeks now.
I don't know. The Dodgers I think the Dodgers probably might be number 1, but also it helps that you have like
yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh yeah. I'm good with unlimited resources. It's like turning this out. Turning all the boosters off on like your 2K franchise.
In fairness, Andrew Friedman was good with the Rays too. So he has that.
Yeah, I'm gonna put force trades on in my 2K and see how good I am at GM. I'm sure I'll do pretty well. Yeah,
but just how impressive is it that the Philadelphia Eagles there's been, only a handful of times a team without a guy we consider to be a Hall of Fame level quarterback or an MVP level quarterback has won a Super Bowl. It's only happened a handful of times in the past 20 years. 2 of those instances would be the Eagles. If you think Hurts is elite, fine, but the general public does not feel that way. And obviously Nick Foles, who played great, but still.
Yeah, you just have to go through the team. Like this team had been closed for a couple of years, and they go and get Saquon Barkley. Obviously, that was a great signing, but that's how they choose to spend their money. They decided to spend it on a running back when they had a complete team, and it worked. They drafted Devontae Smith. He's been awesome. He was a Heisman winner. They trade for AJ Brown at the opportune moment. He's been a huge part of this team basically since he's been there. Dallas Goedert did not have a big game in this one, but he's been a huge part of it. Just go through the roster with this team. Like, go through this entire defense. Josh Sweat, huge part of this team. Zach Bond, they sign him for nothing, and all of a sudden he's the best linebacker in football. He fits their team perfectly. Oren Burks, a guy who's been their backup for the whole year. He comes in, and he was really good in this game too. He was awesome. Milton Williams, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. DeJean and Mitchell were fantastic in this game. 2 rookie corners coming into the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes, and were flawless in this game. They even let a guy like CJ Gardner-Johnson go and bring him back for pennies on the dollar. And he's a fantastic player again in this game and for the entire season, as annoying as he is. You just go through the list, and every one of these players on this defense feels like a major redemption story or just a fantastic draft pick from this team.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you think about, like Jalix Hunt was a 3rd-round pick. Like, that's a guy that we talked about the Sumatea misfire of draft pick for the Chiefs. Like, they could have had Jalix Hunt. So that's something you look at. Obviously, the other picks as well. Kyle, you talked about Sirianni maybe being the best player or the best coach in Eagles history. I have another fun fact. Could you argue the most important player for the Philadelphia Eagles is Carson Wentz? Okay, here's the argument. Carson Wentz was a huge reason why they won the Super Bowl back in 2017. He had an MVP caliber season, probably would have won it had he stayed healthy. They get the 1 seed, are able to take that and win the Super Bowl. Then he gets traded. Remember, the Colts gave up a 1st-round pick for Carson Wentz, which we don't talk about enough. That was incredible. because of that pick, they were able to get several more resources from that, which helped them build this team, allowing them to win another Super Bowl. So Carson Wentz has a hand in multiple Super Bowls for the Eagles that he was on the sidelines for in both instances.
Yeah. They're undefeated when Carson Wentz is on the field for Super Bowls. I mean, that's an important stat.
Yeah.
Put that with the Brady stat.
Yeah. Carson Wentz will be welcome on the Sideline podcast, I think.
I'm not sure he'd accept the invite, but I would be happy to talk to him for sure. Yeah. It was a weird. Yeah, I mean, it is funny to think about, but yeah, it's just it's a fantastic run for this Eagles team going back to 2017 though, and they've been able to not only like stay competitive for the large portion of this time, but also just constantly retool. And like you said, a lot of it is done with really good drafting, and they've drafted really well for several years now. And then they also just picked the right moments for their trades and free agent pickups. Like they ran the gambit with this Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, name the Philly running backs over the last couple of years. DeAndre Swift was here for a little bit. And then just like, you know what? Let's just go get Saquon Barkley. We have money. We have resources. We're going to go get Saquon. We talked about this secondary having issues for all those years. And it's like, you know what? Let's just go get Darius Slay. Darius Slay's the best player on the market. Let's go and get him. And then, they had more secondary issues this year. And it's like, okay, let's just go get Quinyon Mitchell in the draft. And they just constantly are able to maximize what they need and also develop really well along it. So it was a fantastic season, and like you said, he definitely deserves every executive accolade. I would honestly say he might be the best GM in American sports. Honestly, like he's done such a good job with this team.
Yeah, how often he leads the league in times when you after a move you say, "Oh yeah, that's smart." Like that's just like I feel like every move it's like, "Oh yeah, sure, I get that." They got some decisions with Josh Sweat, who's now a free agent, also Milton Williams. So you're happy you got. I mean, those two guys, those guys made a lot of money tonight.
Yeah, Josh Sweat and Trey Smith will look in Patriots jerseys next year.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Where else was I gonna go? I don't know. I had something and I lost it.
We can go back to my Harrison Butker question.
Okay, we could go back to that. That's an option. Yeah. Where else do we go? Do you have any other thoughts on this Super Bowl?
Let's see. Let me look at some other things here. Do I have anything else in the Super Bowl? We touched on it obviously, but this Travis Kelce game might have been one of the worst of his career. He opens the game with 2 drops. And he ends the game with 4 catches, but it was another pretty garbage time performance. Mahomes obviously had a big garbage time performance. The funny thing is we always criticize these quarterback stats, the QBR and the quarterback rating, and they're neither are perfect. He ends up with a 95.4 quarterback rating out of 158.3 because of the garbage time statistical output. And then in QBR, he ends up with 11.4 out of 100. And in this game, he was probably closer to the 11.4 than the 95.4.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, none of these stats are perfect for sure, but yeah, I don't know. Kyle, did you have any thoughts on the MVP stuff?
I mean, I'm not going to criticize a quarterback who gets 290 yards. I mean, they had 345 total offensive yards.
I meant I was talking about not Super Bowl, but just in general MVP.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Actually, before we get there, I remember what I was going to say earlier. Finish up the Super Bowl stuff. Zach Bond, we did not give him enough love, but a guy who, again, was essentially a practice squad player, wins the starting job. Devin White was on this team. Does he get a ring? I don't know. But he was on this team. They instead go with Zach Bond, and he ends up being an all-pro who has an interception in the Super Bowl. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he played great. He was awesome over the middle of the field. And like I said, I think the way they layered their Travis Kelce defense, I thought was so impressive. It just felt like constantly you had a linebacker like Bond in front of him and then a safety behind him too in a lot of those zone situations. And I just thought it was really impressive coverage stuff from what the Eagles did in being able to limit that middle of the field better than almost anybody has against Kansas City. And it was really good. It was really impressive. So he gets he deserves a ton of credit for that in the season he had, and the Eagles defense as a whole with their scheme. Did you listen to the commentary at all?
A little bit. Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about some of that stuff. A little bit. I think I saw they were doing towards the end of the Super Bowl. They were doing the I'm like trying to find things to talk about. Like that's never good at the end of a Super Bowl when you're just like rattling off stories.
Yeah. Tom Brady just reminds me of Pepper Brooks from Dodgeball. Like,
Okay,
I don't
I
know
haven't
if
seen
you,
Dodgeball recently.
yeah, he's
Seen
Jason
it.
Bateman's character in Dodgeball, where
Okay,
he's just kind of
gotcha.
like, regurgitating basically what the analyst commentator says, basically. And so
Hmm.
it's like, Pepper Brooks is like, yeah, he will not be able to see very well, Cotton. I just feel like Tom Brady's entire thing is like, he'll give like a moment of like good insight, but then it'll be like, yeah, it's important that the Chiefs score here, Cotton, except it's Kevin
Yeah.
Burkhardt. And it's just like, oh, yeah, I think teams want to score more than they don't. Tom, thanks.
Yeah, there was one moment where it's like it was actually a really good point where he pointed out that Hertz had called a hot route for Brown to go deep. And I'm like, oh, that's really smart. But you're right. Like there was it's 24-0. We're all thinking about the 28-3 game, right? That's what's in all of our minds because and it's like Tom Brady is calling the game, and it's like, what do you do to get back in it? It's like, oh well, scoring points here would be good. It's like, yeah, no, we know. Like, tell us the story about the 28-3 game, Tom. That's what you're there
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. Dropping down the field and getting 6 points. That's generally a good start. All right. Yeah. I guess we can move on.
Yeah. The other stuff. Did you have any thoughts on first I'll ask, do you have any thoughts on the commercials? I watched none of them. Did you pay attention?
I was vaguely paying attention. I saw something where it's like cowboy hats that were heads. I didn't understand it, so I just kept moving. I saw the William Dafoe commercial before, and that one was really funny. The pickleball one. I enjoyed that one. And then that was about it.
Okay, I'll Google the William Dafoe pickleball commercial. And then what were your thoughts on Kendrick Lamar?
It felt like if there was a very clear demographic line to where you either liked the halftime show or did not. I liked it. I understood a lot of the references too, so that was funny. Not the best. Maybe the biggest loser besides the Chiefs was Drake today. That's not
Yeah.
not a fun day for him.
Mm.
I don't know if I've ever had someone call me a pedophile. Hundreds of thousands of people in an arena call someone a pedophile before. We'll have to get IT on that if that's happened. That's tough. But anyway.
Yeah. That's a lot. It's not the world record for most people seeing someone call somebody else a thing. I'm worried I'll get demonetized if I repeat.
Oh yeah, my bad. Yeah, I won't
It's
say
okay.
that.
No, you're good.
So yeah, it's just a interesting halftime show. I will say, like, I liked it. I love hip hop music, all that kind of stuff. I would kind of understand the argument. Like, I don't think hip hop always translates well to concerts or performances like that. And like, I get it, but I also love hip hop music, so it's whatever.
Yeah, I caught the end of it when he played "Not Like Us" and then turned the TV off. So I'm like, oh, those are two songs I like. So like, I don't know. I didn't see the whole thing, but I had a good time with the 6 minutes I saw.
Yeah, I still like the LA halftime show more with all those guys. I mean, Snoop Dogg's one of my favorite rappers, so that probably checks out. And then, I still think that one was better.
Okay, gotcha. Well, Kyle, I asked this a little bit ago. I guess we can, wrap things up with the thoughts on the MVP stuff with Josh Allen winning. Do you have any thoughts there?
I disagree with it. I don't think he should have won. Like, I'm not gonna pound the table with my fist or anything like that about it. But it's a I just I didn't love it. And I don't think he should have won. But at the same time, like, he's a great quarterback. He had a great season. I mean, there are plenty of statistical reasons why. I just think the media, there shouldn't be allowed to have one quarterback for first team All Pro and one for MVP. Like,
Yeah,
that just
that's the
doesn't make
confusing thing.
sense.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's just that's a goofy argument to me.
Yeah, people keep saying like, well, they think Allen's more valuable, but Lamar is better. Okay, they had about the same amount of snaps where they like either threw or ran the ball, like about the same amount. If Lamar was better, isn't he inherently more valuable? Like, I get that in theory, yes, you could argue that someone deserves first team All Pro and the other deserves MVP. I don't get how you can argue that in this situation. Like, I think if there was a situation where one guy like only played 12 games or something, then okay, I guess I get it. That's not what happened here.
Yeah, I just think we're so galaxy branding ourselves with this whole point of like, oh, it's the most valuable award, not the best player award. Like, you know what? Just put the best damn player on the stage. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't need to hear you like define valuable to me. I know what valuable means. Like,
Right.
Just put the best player on the stage at the end of the season. Like, and honestly, like, the only one that has figured this out is baseball. And it's amazing because like baseball, people will get mad that someone will win like 80 games and win an MVP award, but you know what? It's the best player in the league. That's all that matters. And like, I don't need to be told what's the most valuable thing because I mean, value is so subjective. Just put the best player on the field on the stage at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's become a very weird thing, and also like again, if Josh Allen was the most valuable player to his team, he should have been first team All Pro. It feels like they thought Lamar was better, but didn't want to give Lamar his third MVP and have Josh Allen still with 0.
Yeah, it really did feel like that. I mean, you know, people were making comparisons to Joel Embiid's MVP, and I do see some of the comparisons there. It's kind of, you know, a similar moment. But yeah, it's just I don't know. We overthink these things way too much. You know, there shouldn't be any optics behind an MVP award. It should just be the objective who was the best player this season.
Yeah, I think so, and I don't know. It's bizarre. It's weird, and I'll say this too. Like we're the MVP. Like I think Josh Allen like was a really good player this year and like deserved an MVP. I'm not really mad about the decision. I also will say this as well. Remember last year how everyone's pretends like we all thought that Lamar didn't deserve the MVP, even though it was like nearly unanimous. Only one guy voted differently. That guy who voted for Josh Allen last year got taken off the voting because everyone got mad at him. So like, and now everyone agrees with that guy and thinks that like the voters got it wrong. So I don't know. Maybe let's stop with the whole. I hate this person needs to get their ballot revoked because they disagreed with me. Like no, people they're supposed to disagree. That's what we're doing here. Like we're supposed to get people who think differently. Maybe Emmanuel Acho can be off, but other than that, I think like we're like it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there are certain guys that I question how much they're watching, you know, but you know, at the same time, like, I don't know, like people are allowed to have opinions at the same time. The guy who didn't put Ichiro in the Hall of Fame, I have questions, but outside of that, like, you know, do what you want with your vote. It's your vote.
Yeah, I will say this too. Could we get more than 50? Can we just do like there's like so many people that work in sports. Like could we like why do we need a clean 50? Like why can't we just have like 100 people?
Give us votes. We want votes.
Yeah, we want vote. Actually, I think I'm in the camp of I would not want to vote. I think I might turn it down if I was given the opportunity, just given how much.
I would love a vote. I would love to just broadcast my vote. I would tell everybody what I voted for, and everyone could get mad at me. I don't care.
Yeah, I saw like Sam Monson was the one person, like the PFF guy. I guess not anymore, but he voted for Brock Bowers to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Like a totally normal, in my opinion, like take. Like I think I probably would have also done the same. Like the criticism, like he got. I'm just like, yeah, I'm glad I'm not getting that on Twitter. I feel good. Like I would have also voted for Brock Bowers, and then would have probably been very sad as everyone got mad at me. So I'm glad to just be here on my corner doing my podcast.
Yeah. How many votes did Jordan Mailata get for offensive player of the
year? Yeah, I don't think. I think it was 0. I bet people would have liked that one.
That would have been you. If that ended up on the ballot at the end of the season, and you're the only one that voted for him, like every nerd would have been so mad at you. Like that basically is how it ended.
Yeah, no. My ballot had Brock Bowers, Jordan Mailata. Kyle, this would not have. People would not have liked me.
You would have had your vote revoked immediately. Like, you know,
yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. Yeah, Kyle, what a season. We got through it once again. Everyone in the chat, you don't have to go anywhere because I'm going to be making videos all night. We're staying up all night making videos, so check those out if you're staying up late too, maybe on the West Coast, or if you're next morning. Should be a lot of stuff available. Definitely check out the channel. Kyle, let them know where they can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, you like audio only podcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, search On the Sideline podcast. It should be available there. I'm out on the NFL honors too. Just release the list.
You don't like the show?
No, I don't watch this. Do you like the show? I feel it's not. I think part of it too is like, here's what I don't like. I don't like how they pretend like it's a regular award show. Make it like just like a silly like sports thing.
Yeah, just put an actual comedian on there. Like,
yeah, that would be a good move too.
I like Snoop Dogg, but like we don't need Snoop Dogg on everything now. Like he is literally everywhere. Him and Jason Kelsey should just do a show where they just go on everything.
Yeah,
that honestly should just be it. Like just get a I don't know. It's just, get a real comedian on there to host the show.
Can we get some more? Here's what I want. Get some more awards. I want like best offensive lineman of the year.
Best looking guy in the league award.
Best. Yeah, sure. I like that. Like best single game performance. I don't know. There's things you can do.
Yeah. Best alpha male award.
Well, then Dan Campbell would just win every year.
Yeah, that's fair. What does DEI MVP mean? Didn't a white guy win?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of Kyle. I think I'm at the point where I've gotten too old to understand what's going on with stuff with the internet and everything that's happening.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
is the visor your new like good luck charm? Is that like because you won with the visor? The first time you ever wore it on the podcast was last show.
2 straight. It's worked for me. The Boston College Eagles one. I just wore it today and it worked for me. And maybe I just have to go full visor for the rest of the my life.
Yeah, or at least
always
if
wear a visor.
Break it out in a big moment, perhaps. Kyle, you went 3-0 the last 3 games. Well done. Well deserved championship this year.
Yeah, I managed. Wasn't the perfect season, but I got it done in the end. I liked my pick with the Eagles, and not that it mattered, but it ended up working out.
I do like the person clarifying that white guys can be DUI if they're like veterans or something. Again, Josh Allen, to my knowledge, not a veteran. Could be wrong. I don't know that for sure.
We'll have to get research on that. I don't know. Do you think Haley Steinfeld's with him for his USAA membership?
Perhaps. That's the commercial where it turns out that was all a ploy will be very good.
Yeah. Did Cooper DeJean prove that DEI doesn't work? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Let's get off this again. Thank you to everybody for watching. We do appreciate it. We'll be. So I guess I should explain the new format for the show. We are done with Sunday shows now, but we will still be doing a show once a week, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, our normal time. So be on the lookout for that, as we will still. You might have to. I might have to work around it a bit because I am. I'm going on multiple trips during the off season. Getting married in a few months, so there's that. So, but most Wednesdays, and we'll let you know when we change things around. So be on the lookout for all of that. But yeah, so we'll be back this Wednesday to talk about something.
Yeah, we'll talk about something for sure. There's plenty to talk about.
Be on the lookout for something Wednesday at 6. Kyle, any final thoughts? You're ready to get out of here?
No, I'm tired. Let's get out of here. So I'm ready to go back to a normal sleep schedule. That'll be nice.
Yes. Again, I'm staying up for forever. So very different pathways here. But again, thank you to everybody. We do appreciate it. Until next time, have a good one.
Peace.